Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, so I don't know. I have to laugh because just the news in Israel is, what can I tell you? You know, never a dull moment. So it looks like there is going to be a new government that is going to be sworn in on Wednesday. However, it looks like also, according to the news headlines today, and I'm looking at Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com, that the right wing, quote unquote, is going to be in the opposition. Really? In an article on Israel National News, they report that the Yamina party, headed by Naftali, Bennet, and Ayelet are saying that they will be in the opposition come this Wednesday when a new government is sworn in between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Benny Gantz. They say that Yamina says we're headed for the opposition in light of the prime minister's blatant disrespect for Yamina and its voting public. Yamina has decided to serve the public from the opposition. The Yamina party issued a formal announcement this morning. I'm talking Sunday morning here at this time of the broadcast, and it said it was headed for the opposition in the upcoming term and would not be a partner in the government sworn in on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So what does all that mean? Is it good? Is it bad? Is he right? Is he wrong? We're going to talk about this on the show today. Also, some other interesting news stories about the United States and their relationship with Saudi Arabia and the oil dispute that's going on. And also an Israeli firm uncovers Iran link attempt to hack U.S. virus drug maker. We're going to find out about that as well on the show. You are invited to call in and join us on the air with any questions or comments that you have on the subjects that we're discussing. We'd love to hear from you. We are live if you're listening between 9 to 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, or if it's between 4 to 5 p.m. Holy Time right here in the land of Israel. It means that we are live and you can call in and join us. Also in the chat room, sign into the chat room. You can do it anonymously or with Facebook or Twitter or whatever. We'd love to see you there. Come and say hi. You'll make lots of friends in the chat room, and you'll be able to comment on things. We'll be right back.
Israel is located in one of the most volatile areas in the world. Israel is an island of stability in a sea of war and unrest. In the midst of this turmoil, Israel stands out as a beacon of order and human progress. Each week we update you on what's happening in this, the Jewish state, a true light unto the nations. This is Jay Shapiro. Join me every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Be biblical.
Be beautiful.
Wear your crown.
Wrapping is my crown.
Do what married Jewish women have been doing for thousands of years. Celebrate the art of head wrapping. I'm Andrea Grinberg from Rapunzel.com. We have beautiful scarves, stunning accessories, scarves for faith, scarves for healing, and scarves for fun. Rapunzel.com. That's Rapunzel with a W. Or click on our banner on the Israel News Talk Radio homepage.
Rapunzel.com. Beautiful scarves, stunning accessories paired with tutorials, support, and a vibrant community to give you everything you need to start and perfect your head covering journey.
Don't forget, join the Rapunzel community group on Facebook to see, learn, and share your beautiful wraps. That's Rapunzel with a W on Facebook.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
I love Rapunzel.
Get 10% off your purchase with promo code RADIO. Go now to Rapunzel.com.
So what is happening in Israeli politics? We're supposed to be having a new government that's going to be being signed in on Wednesday of this week. And already we hear the so-called right wing, which is called Yamina. Yamina means right in Hebrew. They say that we are headed for the opposition, which means that they'll be sitting. I'm asking, does that mean they're going to be sitting with the Arabs? And they're going to be sitting with the leftists who are against Netanyahu? How do we decipher what is going on here? Our guest that we have joining us now is Dr. Mordechai Ben Menachem. He's a researcher, former lecturer at Ben Gurion University, and has authored over 70 books and 400 research papers on science, history, and more. He commentates on Mideast and world issues. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mordechai Ben Menachem.
Thank you.
Good to have you on. All right. I'd like to read, if I may, just a paragraph or two from this article on Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com. And they say here that the Yamina Party issued a formal announcement this morning, Sunday morning, stating that it was headed for the opposition in the upcoming term and would not be a partner in the government sworn in on Wednesday. In light of the composition of the government and its policy that appears to be a left-wing government headed by Netanyahu, and in light of the Prime Minister's blatant disrespect for Yamina's voting public, the Yamina Party has decided to serve the public in the opposition in the upcoming term and fight for the national camp from there, the statement said. The decision was made after repeated attempts to exhaust the coalition negotiations with the Likud and Prime Minister Netanyahu, who chose to dismantle the right-wing bloc and partnership with Yamina. And they're saying here also that Yamina will prepare for the day after Netanyahu, which will come in a year and a half. I guess that's what they're predicting, how long the government will last, and produce from the opposition a real alternative, a right that is not ready to sell the justice system to the left for personal survival. Here they mean because they're going to give the justice ministry over to Benny Gantz and the left. And they say here, a right that is not ready to kowtow to Hamas and Abu Mazen, or Mahmoud Abbas, a right that is truly committed to the development and authorization of settlements, a right that doesn't sell Judaism to wheeler dealers and the Israeli economy to Amir Peretz and the Histadrut, which is the labor the unions, basically, a right that does not give up the struggle to remove the infiltrators and the rehabilitation of the neighborhoods, etc. And they're saying that Netanyahu is wrong in making a government with the left. So this is my question to you, because we have a lot of good people who are in the Yamina Party. I have a problem with Bennet. He does a lot of good. Bennet does a lot of good. However, I see him also, sadly, I say this, as an opportunist, because when he was in a real right-wing party and a religious party like the Bayit Yehudi, the Jewish Home Party, in the middle of the night, he snuck out with Ayelet Shaked, and they made their new party, Yamina, or I think maybe it was a different name at that time, and just like shocked everybody that he just ran out. And I'm wondering if he did that because perhaps his advisors told him it's better for you to try to get other votes on the right that aren't necessarily from the religious sector. You have to disassociate from religious sector. And now, you know, after he did that, he didn't even get into the Knesset, but then we had a second election and then a third election. So now he's in the Knesset, but not joining the government. So is he really relevant? Is he not relevant? Is he right? Is he wrong? What do you have to say, Dr. Mordechai Ben Menachem?
Well, there are a lot of issues that need to be covered here. I don't think we have time for all of them, but let's take a few points that are chiefly salient here. First of all, Bennet himself, retarded crybaby, who has no place in the public square. All he's capable of doing is making noise, crying, and telling everybody how much he deserves to have everything and nobody else does. Nobody is interested in his shouts, his crying, or in anything else he has to say. He is personally as irrelevant as he possibly be. He just does not matter. The few votes that they got, and they're very, very few, they only have 6 seats in the Knesset, they got not because of him, but in spite of him.
So you mean people who liked Ayelet
in terms of
Shaked?
Bennet himself. Okay?
Okay.
Now, in terms of the party, the so-called splitter party that calls itself Yamina, it's basically you're talking about a grouping of various splinters, none of which have any real standing, and none of whom matter whatsoever to the mainstream voters in the country. What we're seeing here is something else altogether. You're focusing much too much on just this one party. We have to see that the Labour Party has basically disappeared. The party that created the country and ran it for 4 decades. The Labour Party has disappeared. The entire left has disappeared. You're still talking in terms of left and right. There is no left. Gantz is not left-wing. Gantz is no-wing. He doesn't know if he's left or right, and he is neither left nor right. That's not what he does. That's not what he says. He's not talking about left-wing stuff. He's talking about convenience. We're not talking about left and right. There is no left anymore. All of the issues that the left once had have all died. They're all past tense. The Labour Party has disappeared. Yamina is basically irrelevant. Meretz has basically disappeared. Not quite, but close to it. All of the people on the so-called left, like Yair Golan, can basically scratch the walls, and there's nothing left for them to do because they have nothing to say. They have no program. They have no anything. The reality of the thing is today is what we're seeing, I believe, is we're seeing a process of maturation of the voter. And the voter is saying, we just don't give a damn about crybabies anymore. Go away. Leave us alone. Let us manage the country properly. And he's saying there's no right wing. That Netanyahu broke up the right wing. Why? Because he didn't accept Yamina's demands, so that's breaking up the right wing. And what about Shas and Aguda? They're not part of the wing. It's a nonsense thing to say. And even if it wasn't quite nonsense, what if the Netanyahu government goes to elections in 6, 12, 18 months, but Yamina has any place else to go but with Netanyahu? It's all bluff. It's all hot air. It's all worthless talk. Meaningless.
When you say it's bluff,
what
do you mean? That they really will join with Netanyahu in the end? Or
at the first opportunity that's offered to them. They'll come crawling like ants to honey.
Okay, I want to say here that there are two sides to this, because on one side, you can say that he's right because, here people thought that they're voting for Netanyahu, they'll get a right-wing government, and now he's sitting with Gantz, which was from the left. On the other hand, people are sick and tired of going to elections, spending money, millions and millions and millions of shekels on elections that haven't gotten us anywhere, and they just want a government already. And so, we're kind of like in this, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
No, I think it's even more than that. I think, as I said, it's a maturation of the electorate itself. I think we're seeing an evolutionary maturation here. It's not that people who voted for Netanyahu expected a right-wing government. They expected a Netanyahu government. And they realized that Netanyahu, particularly after the second and the third try, would create whatever government he's capable of creating, because that's the only choice. No one is so stupid to think that Netanyahu is going to be 100% ideologue when what we really need is someone who can run the country. We're not talking about ideology. We're talking about managing a nation.
How will they be able to serve their voters from the opposition, if they do go into the opposition, when their voters voted for Bennet because they expected Bennet to keep Netanyahu, right? And that's why they didn't vote for Netanyahu, because they felt that Netanyahu will probably get in anyway, but we need to, put the votes more on the right so we can keep him right. And here he's saying that he's going to join the opposition.
Well, the answer to that is sort of a yes and no. On the one hand, every Knesset member does serve a certain public by doing things for them, not only in the sense of new laws and things like that, but there are all sorts of functions that a Knesset member does in committees and in other things and in influence and et cetera. So they, in a sense, they can serve things. But what are they going to do? They're going to serve the settlements in Judah and Samaria that are about to be annexed to Israel while he's against, what is he for or against what? What is he going to serve them for? What is his objective? What does he actually want other than to be bought?
It's very interesting what's going to happen. I don't want to talk too much about it because we don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen even in the middle of the night on Tuesday night going into Wednesday before they sign the government, so we'll have to see. All right, when we get back, we'll be talking about some other events that are happening in the world that have an effect on everybody in the world. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back, everybody.
The Tamar Yonah Show.
Tamar? She's sassy.
She's smart.
She's funny.
But she's also a real Jewish mother.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamar Yonah. And yes, I can be all of those things. But at Israel News Talk Radio, I'm here to bring you the news stories and guests that you may not hear anywhere else. Join me live on air Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays for the most unique and bold talk radio in Israel.
The Tamar Yonah Show.
All right, so there are two events that are happening also in a wider context, not just Israel. We're going to take a look now at the United States, at Saudi Arabia, at Iran, because it does affect you and me, even though we don't think about it. We're a small world now, and everything affects us. So, Dr. Mordechai Ben Menachem, where would you like to start?
Well, it looks like two separate issues, but they're not. They're actually one issue together. What the issues are, let's define what it is we're talking about on the basic facts. On the one hand, there's been a discovery that Iran has been leading very, very strong cyber attacks against companies in the United States and Israel trying to fight the COVID-19 illness. In other words, here we have these so-called religious men in Iran who are running this awful theocracy in Iran, one of the worst hit countries in the world. And what is one of the main things that and the chief desires to prevent the world from finding a cure to this horrible illness that has already taken hundreds of thousands of lives.
Wait, you're saying that the Iranian leadership is trying to prevent a cure from being found?
Precisely.
Why?
Well, let's go on for a moment. Let's just a second. It's a very poignant question. Okay. And in parallel to this, we all know that Iran last September attacked some Saudi oil facilities, taking offline a very major portion of the world's oil supply. And that's basically what began the present situation of the crash of oil prices around the world. That was the sort of the how do you say it, the straw that broke the camel's back, or the final stone in the wall, or whatever you want to call it. And so they attacked these Saudi oil facilities. Now, all of these oil facilities were quote-unquote, protected by an American system called the Patriot system. Now, the Patriot system, some people with a little bit of memory of history might recall that the first time the Patriot system was ever used in actual combat was in the first Gulf War, when Saddam began shooting Scud rockets at Israel, and America brought us Patriot systems to protect us. And the actual bottom line was that the Patriots, when they fell down after missing exactly 100% of their targets, caused more material damage in Israel than the Scuds did. Now, the Patriot missile system has never had one single successful interception in combat conditions in all of its history.
Keep going.
Now, so America now is removing 2 of its 4 Patriot systems from Saudi. And the theory that the journalists, or the imitation journalists, whatever, are presenting, because America and the Saudis are in a bit of a spat over the price of oil. I don't believe that's the case. I think the Americans are saying, you know something? It failed again. What's the point? Why should we keep hundreds of soldiers there to do nothing with a system that does nothing? We need to rethink what we're doing in terms of defending our allies from Iran. America is not about to abandon Saudi Arabia to the whims of these madmen in Tehran and Qum. That's what we're seeing here. These are the externalities that we're seeing. On the one hand, Iran, cyber attacks, massive cyber attacks against American pharmaceutical companies and Israeli pharmaceutical research companies attempting to solve the COVID-19 catastrophe. And on the other hand, America is repositioning itself actively, not only throughout the Middle East, but very actively repositioning itself in terms of Iran, in terms of Iran, by the way, today is America's only real enemy. I'm discounting North Korea because they're too trivial to be bothered with. While they have China not as an actual enemy, but as a very, very strong and vicious competitor. And there's a difference between an enemy and a competitor. A competitor can become an enemy, but they aren't yet. And America is very actively repositioning itself. Just last week, Japan completed a purchase of an island that they intend to convert into basically an unsinkable aircraft carrier, together with the Americans, to allow America to have a more stable forward base, not on the Japanese main islands. That's a significant strategic move in addition. So we're seeing a general repositioning. America is rethinking its options in terms of how it views the world strategically, geostrategically, both in terms of military and in terms of its relationships with its adversaries and with its allies. And I think this is a very, very significant process, particularly when we add to that the other things that are going on, like the price of oil, which is still very low and has not really recovered at all so far, and a lot of these other processes that we're seeing going on around the world.
All right, so you've tied in Iran, you've tied in Saudi Arabia and the United States. Where does Israel fall in all of this?
Well, Israel is a major ally of the United States. In 30 years ago, the United States looked at the world and said, okay, our major allies in the Middle East are Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and Israel is sort of a tag-along. Today, the major ally of the United States in this whole area is only Israel, and the others there, like Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Egypt, they're sort of nice to have, but they're not really essential to anything. They don't really add any real added value to the United States, except for some bases and things like that. Nothing else. Turkey, of course, has made itself totally irrelevant to the United States. It's no longer an ally at all. It's more of a thorn in the side than anything else. And the only ally it has right now in this whole area of the world is Israel that it can depend upon. And Israel is a very important ally. We're doing a great deal well beyond just the military sphere. By the way, the revealing of the machinations of the Iranian regime were revealed by an Israeli company.
Keep going.
And that's a very interesting statement I made, because I said Israeli company, both in terms of it's of course Israeli, and it's a private company. It's not by the government. So Israel, in terms of an ally of the United States, is much more basic than the vast majority of people realize, because it's not just the government and the IDF that's the ally, the active ally of the United States, but it's many, many, many companies here that are doing things that directly affect every American citizen's security in the United States and American citizens that are outside the United States. Directly affect their security on a daily basis.
Okay, we only have 2 minutes left. What would you like to leave our listeners with? What can we go away with after listening to this?
Well, I would say that people need to be a little bit more aware of what's going on and to try to follow things. People have a tendency to follow what shouts at them, things that they readily perceive as affecting them. But the reality of the world is, as you said very wisely just a few moments ago, the world is growing smaller and smaller every year, and a lot more things affect everyone than people really realize today, and people need to be waking up to the ramifications of various machinations that go on around the world, and many of these are very important. Some of them are trivial, like stuff that's going on in Europe right now. Europe has made itself completely irrelevant on a geopolitical stage and on the military stage. But a lot of things are very important, and people need to be waking up to things.
Yeah, I just want to comment and say that I've seen a lot of headlines talking about how Europe is kowtowing to China, how Europe has taken a big brunt of the COVID-19 deaths and sicknesses, and yet they're not, calling China out on it.
Well, Europe has more than 2/3 of the total death count in the world. I think that's a very, very significant number, considering that Europe has always claimed that it has the best medical systems in the world. It turns out that their medical systems are basically very much third world. They're poor. They're inefficient. They just don't get the job done. People die. And in this case, hundreds of thousands of people have died.
Yeah, but why are they kowtowing, at least according to the headlines, to China?
Because they're cowards. They have nothing. There's nothing else. They realize that there's nothing left for them to do. Their economy is totally decimated. Their economy, when the EU began, it had more than a third of the world's economy. It's now less than 10%.
All right, we're going to have to hold it there.
Anymore.
Dr. Mordechai Ben Menachem, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for talking about these topics so we're aware of what's going on.
Thank you for having me.
And when we get back, it's time for our Jewish activism segment with Shifra Hoffman. We'll be right back.
In a time where feelings have become fact, where rational thought and common sense has disappeared, one man stands above it all.
I'm Howie Sobiker, your political hitman.
Political Hitman airs every Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. North American time, 7 a.m. Israeli time, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
and me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Well, it is time now for our Jewish activism segment with Shifra Hoffman. She is the founder of victimsofArabTerror.org, and she is the director of Shuva.net. Shuva meaning return. Welcome to the show, Shifra Hoffman.
Thank you, Tamar. And what can I say now that we're learning, Baruch Hashem, thank the Almighty, it's a little receding, the coronavirus. We have to try to get the Israeli government to realize that the priority should be for Jews to come here, because it's predicted that the anti-Semitic attacks are going to be worse than the coronavirus. I believe that too, and I think there's an excellent article by Rabbi Melamed from Harush Sheva. He writes about the obligation for Jews, especially every Jew, religious or not, to live in Israel. And I hope that the message gets across.
All right, so one of the reasons why you're really, I mean, you always talk about Aliyah, Shifra, but one of the reasons that this is even more urgent today is because with the pandemic comes again, like we've seen in history over and over and over again, every time that there's a pandemic, fingers are pointed at the Jews, and anti-Semitism gets even worse. And it's not going to be good for the Jews in the diaspora. When people are losing their jobs, have lost their job, are maybe hungry, when there's not enough food supplies in the store, and people are getting antsy and angry, they're going to want to blame somebody. And most likely it's going to be the Jews. Go ahead.
It's true, but that's why they should be here. At least we have our own government, at least. Supposedly there's a unity government, whatever it will be, but they have to look out for us. I read an article that says we should stock up now on perishable, non-perishable food, canned stuff, things that don't spoil easily, because, as you pointed out, there may be great shortages, and people are not respectful when it comes to hunger. They'll eat like cannibals. And I'm afraid of that. It's better to have and not need than to need and not have. So I think everybody, first of all, I want to give a public acknowledgement to Prime Minister Netanyahu, not that I go for any of his political things. It's because he really devoted himself day and night to trying to stop the pandemic from getting worse. And I think it's a time that we should realize politics doesn't play a part in who it infects. And he did the right thing. He was cautious. And I, for one, feel that he should be acknowledged.
All right, Shifra, you wanted to also talk about the elections in the United States between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. You're saying that you want to zero in on how Joe Biden would be a detrimental president, not just for the United States, but also for Israel.
Absolutely so. Many people feel that you can do something for Jews, and that means that you don't care about the rest of the world. That's not so. We have to care about our own first, because we were the ones that had the Holocaust, the pogroms, the Crusades, the Inquisition. Yes, we have to do for Jews, but this doesn't concern only Jews. Joe Biden, I think, is a big idiot, but he's not stupid for himself. He just wants to be president. I remember when Jonathan officers in prison that he said allegedly want to let him out of prison. He said over his dead body, meaning Biden said over his own dead body. I said, whichever way, I don't care if it's that way. Why wouldn't he let a man who's been in prison for 30 years to go to the funeral of his mother or his father, or even visit them before they died? I believe he's an anti-Semite, and I think that Jews should be very leery and say, I don't even want to say to vote for anyone. Come here, vote with your feet, come home to Israel. I don't know what we can say tomorrow. We've been saying it for years. I'm hoping that people listen. I read one or two articles where individuals are coming now, and they're saying that after the pandemic, they want to be in Israel. But even if there's no pandemic, this is your place, isn't it?
You know, I just want to, I'm trying to see if I can find this article that was on Arutz Sheva, but I've seen it in other places as well, where they're talking about that if Joe Biden is elected president, he says he would start to fund the quote-unquote Palestinians, which means that he would be funding terror. And this is not just an Israeli or Jewish issue, because let's remember that the PLO hates the United States, hates America. They have hijacked planes that are international, not just Israeli. They have done terror around the world. They have killed American citizens. So this is something that's detrimental for the United States itself.
You know, Tamar, we say when Israel sends money to the PLO, I would agree with you about Biden, about anybody who wants to fund them with anything. But how does Israel have the chutzpah to send them money, even if tax money or whatever they claim? They have no right to any money which they give to terrorists, and they don't even hide the fact. And now I read something today. They have a new way of increasing terrorism. They sneak out sperm. The sperm of a terrorist, they sneak out of the prisons and impregnate Arab women so that they should have a chain of terrorists in the future. It's bizarre. And I don't know how can Israel actually ask any country or any individual to fight terror if this is permitted? We have to clean our house or clean the swamps, as Trump says.
All right, Shifra, where can people contact you if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, it's the usual address, hoffmanshifrin@gmail.com. But we are now taking orders for invitations, I should say, for my book. I'm really thrilled, thank the Almighty, to the wonderful reviews, including yours, Tamar, that have been coming in. I think it's a book everybody can read. It's very easy, and it has a variety of subjects, poetry, articles, prayers, all the things that I think that Jews would like to know, but it's not lofty. You don't have to look in the dictionary to find words. So if anybody would like to order, they can write to me at hoffmanshifra@gmail.com, or maybe to you, Tamar. And I want to say a special hello to Pam Galasso. Thank you so much for supporting us. Blessed Hashem, blessed all the good things that you are.
Well, thank you very much, Shifra Hoffman. All right. And we're coming towards the end of the show, but I have another couple minutes just to, again, I want to go back to a topic that we were visiting at the top of the show, and that is with the story that the Yamina is basically saying that they are headed for the opposition. Read this again to you. They say, in light of the Prime Minister's blatant disrespect for Yamina and its voting public, Yamina has decided to serve the public from the opposition. Now, I don't know if this is just a ploy in order to try to get some type of ministerial positions in the government that they want. We know that they wanted the Justice Ministry with Ayelet Shaked at the head so she can continue with her job as the Minister of Justice. We know that Naftali Bennet wants to remain to be the defense minister in this new government. It doesn't look like they're going to be getting these ministries, and so they're making these I guess, threats or statements, whatever you want to call it. And I have to say, there is merit to both sides. There's merit to the side of saying that on one side, Netanyahu, if he didn't do this, we would be going to fourth elections. And nobody wants to go to fourth elections. It is a waste of money. We see the ilk that we have in the Knesset. We see the egos that we have there. And people were relieved and grateful that these egotistical politicians, Benny Gantz and Netanyahu, I mean, you can like Netanyahu, many of us do, but they still have egos. They all want power. And we were happy that finally they were able to get past their egos and hammer something out just so we don't have to go to the fourth elections. And of course, they're going to benefit from it. They wouldn't do anything they're not going to benefit from. Netanyahu keeps power for the next year or two between there, and Benny Gantz will be able to be the prime minister afterwards. So we see that. On the other hand, we have people who voted for a right-wing government, and they cast their votes with Bennet, and they were expecting Netanyahu to keep his right-wing bloc intact, and here he didn't do it. He went and he made a deal with the left, which is Benny Gantz. So you've got two camps here. You have two philosophies, and they both have some merit. I would like to see Yamina stay in the government with Netanyahu. I would not like him to be sitting in the opposition, he and Ayelet Shaked, with other people who are sitting in the opposition, which is like the Arab bloc, which is anti-Israel. They want to see a Palestine. And with other people who want to see not even they might be Jews. They don't even want to see a Jewish state. They're just leftists, and they want to have this leftist, globalist type of government. I wouldn't like to see him sitting there. Love to hear your opinions. Feel free to comment where the show is podcasted and on Facebook as well. Thank you all for being with us. You've been listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
Howdy, this is Rita from League City, Texas, now living in Israel. And though my heart may have belonged to Texas, it now belongs to Israel and all the fantastic show hosts at Israel News Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Michael Solomon from Kiryat Arba, Israel. And why do I love listening to Israel News Talk Radio? Because I love listening to the interesting interviews they do and their news reporting that most other media sources don't cover.
Hey, this is Nicoleko from Malmö, Sweden. It gets pretty cold here in Sweden, so I love cuddling up with a warm cup of tea while I listen to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Frank Morris from Tennessee. Me and my dog Buster really love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.